All right, I'm going to go live in just a moment, just a few moments. I'm going to wait to see if we get anyone in here live first of all, before we can do that. And then we'll get the action started, get the conversation started here. Oh, we already got a few people, so I'm the best. What the heck was that? I'm the best. Hold on, Rose. We're going to get to you in a moment here. Going to get to you in just a moment, Rose. But we already got a few people, so let's get this started. All right. Welcome back to WMAC Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson, coming at you with the weekend recap for the weekend of May 6th through 8th, 2022. Had some good fights this weekend, and we had one of the worst. And we're going to talk about all of them. So let's get down into it. I don't want to waste anyone's time here. Let's get down to it. We're going to start with Friday. Friday afternoon, we had Bellator 280. We had a bout in the flyweight division where Lucy Bertode defeated Katarzyna Sidora via unanimous decision. Bertode climbed to 4-3. Sidora fell to 5-5. So this fight actually surprised me here. Bertode surprised me a bit. She looked a lot better than I thought she would against Sidora, particularly on the feet. Like, I didn't think she would beat Katarzyna Sidora on the feet, but Bertode was beating her on the feet and took her down too. And I knew Sidora wasn't that good on the ground, but I didn't know Bertode was that good either. So Lucy Bertode, the local girl, the French woman, all around doing better than I thought she would. So good on her. So then we move to Friday night. PFL was in, where were they at? PFL was in Arlington, Texas. PFL, what do they call it? 22 regular season, number 3. All the ladies' bouts were in the lightweight division, of course. First up, we had Martina Gindrova defeating Vanessa Mello via unanimous decision. Gindrova climbed to 5-2. Mello fell to 11-9. I wasn't surprised by this result at all. In fact, I actually had picked Gindrova to win because before this fight, Gindrova was fighting at featherweight and Mello was fighting at bantamweight and had just gotten cut from the UFC. So I wasn't surprised that Gindrova got the win because she was only moving up one weight class and was used to fight. excuse me, was used to fighting at a heavier class, whereas Mello, she wasn't used to fighting at the heavier weight yet, and she was moving up 2 weight classes. That's 20 pounds from 135 to 155. So that's a lot of weight to move up. That is not a lot of time to adjust to fighting up a weight like that. So didn't actually watch the fight. I slept through the first 2 of these bouts. So haven't seen it yet, but not surprised that Gindrova won. And actually, out of all the fights this weekend, I think my PFL picks were the best. Or no, my Deep Jewels picks were the best, but PFL did okay. This one I got wrong. Helena Kolesnik defeated Abby Montez via split decision. Kolesnik climbed to 6-4. Montez fell to 3-1. I thought that Montez would do much like she did against Clarissa Shields. Kolesnik does not have a very good takedown defense, does not have a good ground game. So I thought that Montez would just try to take her down like she did against Shields and beat her there. But apparently, this is a bit of a slugfest. So I got to go back and watch this because I haven't yet. But good for Helena Kolesnik. I believe she snapped a losing streak with this win. Let me check here real quick. Yeah, Kolesnik snapped a 4-fight losing streak with this win. So for Montez, it was only her first loss. So no big deal. Back to the drawing board for her. And hey, she might still advance in the season. She's got another fight coming up. So then moving on, I believe I got this one wrong as well. Jenna Fabian defeated Julia Budd via unanimous decision. Fabian climbed to 5-2. Budd fell to 16-4. Budd just found a striker who was bigger and stronger than her, and that's just how it worked out. Good on Jenna Fabian. Unfortunately, she missed weight, so she didn't get any points for this one, how the PFL works. But yeah, you look at the two compared to each other, like standing next to each other, like the weigh-ins or anything. Fabian is a true 155 pounder. Like she is a true lightweight fighter, but still a featherweight. I mean, Fabian's just an Amazon, is all there is to it. Um, just built like a brick outhouse, or to put it lightly. Uh, so not. I mean, I picked Bud, but I'm not super surprised that Fabian got the win there. Chad Kim in the chat says looking forward to this. Keep it alone. Moving up to the main card. First round finish in this one. Larissa Pacheco defeated Zamzagul Faizalanova via TKO due to punches. A minute 25 seconds of the first round. Pacheco climbed to 16-4. Faizalanova fell to 7-2. This is another example of someone moving up a weight class and looking so much smaller in there. Okay, granted, Pacheco, a few years ago, she was still a bantamweight. I mean, when she fought in the UFC, she was a bantamweight, came back for the Ultimate Fighter, fought as a featherweight, but she spent the last few years really bulking up, getting up there, and now she looks like a lightweight in the cage there. Whereas Faizalanova, she looked like a featherweight, she looked like someone fighting up a weight class. Like she did not bulk up for this. And you could tell the first punch that Pacheco landed, Faizalanova knew she was in for a world of trouble in this bout, and it did not take long for Pacheco to just take her out of there. So, really rough night there for what's her name, Zamzagul Faizalanova. But Larissa Pacheco looking like a serious threat again. Hopefully, she can keep her weight under control this season, because that cost her last time. Then in the main event, Kayla Harrison, no surprise, defeated Marina Magnakina. But what was a little bit surprising here was that it took Harrison all 3 rounds to go to the decision here. Only her second decision ever in 13 fights. So Harrison climbed to 13-0. Magnakina fell to 6-3. Got to give Marina Magnakina credit. Her defense was what allowed her to get through this fight and get to the decision. I mean, she couldn't really mount any offense other than to dive for leg locks. And that was really the only offense she had. The rest of the time, the rest of the fight, it was Magnakina on defense. And her sambo, got to give credit to her sambo, matched up really well with Harrison's judo and just allowed her to basically cancel out everything that Harrison tried to do. But Magnakina, she's not a lightweight either. She should probably be back down at bantamweight. But she got signed to Bellator, started fighting at featherweight for a few fights, and then got signed to PFL, and now she's at lightweight. So Kayla Harrison I think she only got like 3 points for that one, which actually puts her behind Larissa Pacheco for that one. So Pacheco will actually probably end up getting easier fight next time out than Harrison will. Not that it matters, because they're all pretty easy fights for Kayla Harrison. So that's it for PFL. Jacob Stacy says Faizalanova fired back, just not with enough firepower. Yeah, like she did try to hit Pacheco back, Faizalanova did. It's just she does not have the oomph on her punches that Pacheco has. Pacheco has bricks for hands. You know, she's one of those Brazilian farm girls. Judy V says Marina gave Kayla a run for it. Definitely Harrison's probably hardest fight to date. I mean, I would say she had a harder time with Magnakina than she did with Larissa Pacheco the last time they fought. So that's PFL. So actually going to skip over the UFC here real quick. Let me adjust these pictures, because I want to talk about the UFC. I want to save the UFC for last. So we're going to move over to Deep Jewels, where we had 3 title fights, including the inaugural featherweight championship and the inaugural flyweight championship, which capped off the Deep Jewels Flyweight Grand Prix. And got to be honest, this Grand Prix really fell apart because two fighters dropped out before the quarterfinals, allowing TA here and Aoi Kuriyama to get buys into the semis. And then Aoi Kuriyama here on the far right missed weight, allowing Shizuka Sugiyama to move into the finals. So for the first fight, Rin Nakai defeated Tei Murayama via submission due to armbar 443 of the second round. I got to give Murayama credit, though, because, excuse me, I did not expect Murayama to make it into the second round against Rin Nakai. Maybe Rin Nakai is getting older. Maybe she was just feeling things out in the first round. I haven't gotten to watch the fights yet because Deep Jewels actually started early yesterday. It was earlier than I thought it would start, and it was actually going on at the same time as UFC 274. So I haven't gotten to these yet. But Rin Nakai getting it done in the second round via submission and moving on to the finals, which was expected. She was the biggest favorite in the tournament. And then, as I said earlier, Aoi Kuriyama here on the right-hand side missed weight, allowing the other tournament favorite, Shizuka Sugiyama, to get a bye into the finals. Then we had a microweight bout where Momoko Yamazaki on the left-hand side there defeated Kyoka Minagawa via unanimous decision. And after 2 rounds, what's her name? Momoko climbed to 3-2 as a pro. Kyoka is now 0-3 as a pro, unfortunately. I wasn't surprised. Kyoka here on the right, she is small even by microweight 97-pound standards. And even though Momoko hadn't fought for a while because of injury, I knew she'd probably come in and win. Then we move on to a strawweight bout. Mika Nagano, the future princess, defeating Kate Lotus Oyama via submission due to guillotine choke, 57 seconds of round 2. This was one I wasn't sure about because, Mika Nagano, she hadn't fought in a few years and she was on a bit of a losing streak the last time she fought, whereas Kate Oyama, she's a lot younger because Nagano is like 38 years old. And look, Kate Lotus is only like 23. She was only 2-2 coming into this. So it was like more of like, well, what's going to be worse here? The ring rust of Nagano or the inexperience of Kate Lotus? And it was the inexperience of Kate Lotus. Mika Nagano getting, I believe it was her first win via guillotine. And most of her wins come by submission, but they were either armbar or rear naked choke. This is the first win for her by guillotine. So Mika Nagano, 38 years old, coming back and still getting it done. Granted, against a much less experienced opponent. Then we had the inaugural featherweight championship. Yoko Higashi on the left there defeated King Reina again via unanimous decision. This time, the inaugural featherweight championship was on the line, and Yoko Higashi got it done against King Reina. I wasn't, I think I picked Yoko Higashi to win this one just because, I don't know, King Reina just can't seem to put things together as a fighter. Maybe she's just that limited. Maybe she just doesn't have the mind for fighting. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the fight yet, so I can't really say, but I do remember picking Higashi to win this one, so no surprise there. Then we had an atomweight championship with the champion there, Saori Oshima on the left, defeating the high schooler there, Moeri Suda, via submission due to armbar, 4:53 of the first round. Not really surprised. I mean, Oshima doesn't have that many more fights than Moeri Suda. but she's been like her grappling experience just and credentials just way exceed what Moeri Suda was coming into the fight with. And Suda's still young. This isn't like the end for her. I mean, she can come back from this. I mean, she was on a 5-fight winning streak coming into this, and she had started out 0-2, gets 5 wins in a row, calls out the title for a title fight, and got it. Just wasn't good enough to beat the champ Saori Oshima. She'll come back from this. She'll recover. Oshima, on the other hand, so over at friend of the channel Charlie Jewett at sogo-kaku.com has a good recap, and Oshima at the post-fight presser, she's actually not sure right now about continuing in MMA. Has a lot to do with her husband. He hasn't been doing as good in his judo matches since Oshima started training MMA. Plus, Oshima, she has to take care of her twin daughters. Doesn't always have time to train, and her husband's the breadwinner. And if he's not doing so good at judo, then they're not bringing in the money. So, but go check out that recap, and Charlie explains it all. That's at sogo-kaku.com. But hopefully, this is just talk for now, and Oshima can keep going. So then we had the main event, the Flyweight Grand Prix finals for the inaugural Deep Jewels Flyweight Championship. Rin Nakai getting it done via armbar, 4 minutes, 53 seconds of the first round. Sugiyama did not do nearly as good as I thought she would. I thought this would be a much closer fight than it ended up being, but Rin Nakai just basically steamrolled Shizuka Sugiyama. So really disappointing from her, but Rin Nakai getting it done and, showing why she was the tournament favorite in, the vast majority of people's eyes. So good for Rin Nakai. So we got some chats. Jacob Stacy says, talking about Machnet Kina, says, yes, she did much better than many thought she would. A stiffer test for Harrison, which was good for Kayla. Hope to see Harrison's opponent level continue to rise. Don't get your hopes up. Young Son Floyd's correcting me here. This was Kayla's third decision. Larissa took her to decision twice. Okay, see, I thought she had finished Larissa one of the times, and then the other time was decision. Jacob Stacy says they announced that Nakai is tended to be the deep representative at featherweight flyweight in the UFC. This tournament was essentially a project to install her, it seems. Well, I know that's Rin Nakai's hope, is that she can get back into the UFC. This tournament is definitely going to do a lot to help her, but man, her personal situation / management situation is just going to keep making it hard for her. Jacob saying King Reina is like, wow, is it over for her? I don't know, man. She seemed like a prospect at first. She just can't put it together in fights. I don't know what's going on. All right, so that's it for Deep Jewels. Let me fix the slideshow here. So now we move on to UFC 274, which is where we'll finish the night, and we're going to spend definitely going to spend a lot more time talking about this. So first up, at strawweight, second fight of the night, Lupita Godinez defeated Ariana Carnelossi via unanimous decision. Godinez climbed to 8-2. Carnelossi fell to 14-3. I will admit, I picked Carnelossi to win this one, and I just didn't think that Godinez playing into the physical game against Carnelossi was going to work out very well. But it turns out that not only does Godinez have the physicality, but she also, well, I knew she had the technical ability, but she also has the physicality to combine both to just really take it to Carnelossi and control her in every aspect of the fight. Classic Lupi Godinez fight. She struck her way into the clinch, got the takedown near the fence, and just stayed absolutely glued to Carnelossi. This really nice example of the way that Lupita Godinez fights best. And when I mean she stayed glued to Carnelossi, she did not give Carnelossi room. I mean, she just stayed absolutely like super glue on her and did not give Carnelossi breathing space. And it really worked out for her. So very nice, valiant effort there by Lupita Godinez. There's an example of a takedown, and Godinez just getting her down, and she just really stayed attached to Carnelossi this whole fight. Just really nice example there by Lupi Godinez. For Carnelossi, she certainly has the physicality to give a lot of girls problems, but now she's got to up her technical ability because I believe she's out of the same camp as Jessica Andrade, and she fights a lot like a more prototypical Jessica Andrade in that she relies on her strength and physicality, but she hasn't gotten her technical abilities up the way that Jessica Andrade has yet. And, I mean, still young in her career. She's got how many fights now? 14-3, so 17 fights, but the way she fights, that's technically kind of young for her. So we could still see Carnelossi come back and improve. But for Godinez, I think she's ready for a step up at strawweight competition. As long as she stays away from flyweight and doesn't take any more short notice fights, because I believe both of her losses in the UFC were short notice. I know the Luana Carolina one was like, she fought the week after her previous fight. The Jessica Penny fight, a lot of people thought she actually deserved to win over Penny in that one. So Godinez, very promising prospect in the UFC so far. Jacob says, Lupi looked top 10 worthy. I don't know about top 10, but I think she definitely deserves a shot at that 11 to 15 range. For Judy B says, the women's undercard was way better than the co-main. Oh, yeah. We're going to get to that too. And said she enjoyed Lupita versus Ariane fight. And Jacob Stacy agrees. So moving on to the other prelim fight, or the second prelim fight at flyweight. Tracy Cortez defeated Melissa Gatto via unanimous decision. Cortez climbed to 10-1. Gatto fell to 8-1. So Gatto lost her O in this bout. I was frustrated with the way Melissa Gatto went about this fight because I had picked her to win. How many times did she give up superior positioning to go for a low probability armbar? At least twice, possibly 3 times. She gave up superior positioning to go for a low probability armbar. You have back control. Go for ground and pound. Go for the rear naked choke. Why are you going to give up back control to go for an armbar? Especially against someone who has relatively short arms like Tracy Cortez. Just so dumb. And then she gave up positioning and then found herself on bottom underneath Cortez. And that's where Cortez does best. When she's on top, trying to smother and hold you down, that's what Cortez does. She gets top control and gets to decision. And that's what happened here. Not so much because she just straight up outfought Gatto, but a lot of it was due to Gatto just having really bad fight IQ. I mean, hats off to Tracy Cortez, though. Like, she got, I think, almost all of her takedowns that she wanted. And she did well. It's just, man, having picked Gatto, I was really disappointed in how she performed. But, hey, hats off to Tracy Cortez. She stayed, undefeated in the UFC. So, yeah, here we go. Gatto going for an armbar here. Or looking like she was going to go for an armbar. And wasn't going to get it. Just was not going to get it. Yeah, it was just very low probability. This is funny. Jacob Stacy says, are you saying that with Cortez's arms and Angela Lee's head, we have a whole T-Rex? Yeah, that's good. That's a good comparison, man. Yeah, you'd have a good T-Rex fighter with Angela Lee's head, big head, and Cortez's, short, relatively short arms. So Tracy Cortez getting it done, staying undefeated in the UFC. This was not a particularly good fight, but Macy Chiasson defeated Norma Dumont via split decision at featherweight. Chiasson climbed to 8-2. Dumont fell to 7-2. Now I'll give Macy credit. I picked Dumont. I did not think she was going to be able to bully Dumont around, which is basically all she was really able to do against Dumont, though. Just really kind of like push her around, move her around, and hold her against the fence a lot of the time. I'm surprised the ref didn't break it up more, but he didn't. And it allowed Chiasson to just really get that control time against the cage. Dumont, I don't know where she's going to go from here, but featherweight's days are numbered in the UFC. Even Dumont knows this. Like she even said on social media, I don't know why the UFC keeps featherweights around. They're not doing anything with them. They're not signing prospects. They're not trying to grow it. So I think even she realizes that her days at featherweight are numbered, and said that if they were to close it down and she had to go to bantamweight, she would work with the Performance Institute to try to get her weight down to bantamweight. For Chiasson, she already said, she likes featherweight, but she wants to go back down to bantamweight really, because that's where the options are for her, are at bantamweight. There's no real options for her at featherweight in the UFC. There just aren't. Judy V says, I do not understand why Tracy and others wear eyelashes to a fight. Makes no sense. Must be permanent ones. Either she just has super long eyelashes or they're permanent ones, because, you got to imagine that the fake ones would start coming off. Jacob Stacy says, that Bellator girl was turking in a cage. Anything goes these days, I guess. Bellator. You talking about Valerie Lareda? Because that was a while ago. Judy says, or she pastes them with crazy or Gorilla Glue on them. Well, I hope not, because we all saw, it's a pretty viral video of a girl that put Gorilla Glue in her hair, and it did not work out well for her. Not a fighter, just a girl on TikTok or something. Hey, Christopher Edwards Bailey in the chat says, Tracy Cortez surprised me. Good performance. Yeah, it was a good performance for her. Not such a great performance from Gato, but Cortez did well, and she fought to her strength. Cortez fought to her strengths, and it works out. And you got to give fighters credit for that. So then we move on to the main event, the co-main event, the main event for the ladies, strawweight championship, where Carla Esparza recaptured her long-lost strawweight championship via split decision over Rose Namajunas. Esparza climbed to 19-6. Namajunas fell to 11-5. If you didn't catch my live fight companion for this fight that I only ran for this fight, had you seen it, you would have seen my frustration with this fight. It was just so boring. This is a terrible fight. Terrible fight. Not a good showing for either lady, but at least Carla Esparza, tried. Yeah, Carla tried. That to me was like the most frustrating thing. And I got my notes here. Every time Carla Esparza tried to move forward and engage, Rose backed away and circled way around. So I think for a lot of the rounds, that's what won Carla the decision, was the fact that she was at least trying to be the aggressor. And she was the one moving forward for the first 3 rounds. Now, I think about midway through the 3rd round, And I know the fourth and fifth round, Rose was actually the one coming forward, but she wasn't doing anything. She was pressuring, but she was trying to wait for Carla to do anything. Whereas it seemed like Carla was content to wait for Rose to come forward and go for the takedown as the counter. So it was just very frustrating fight plan by both. Just all around frustrating. Oh, it was just so bad. So I kept my scores from last night. Now, before I read these out, let me remind you all that when I try to score a fight, I try to score it based on how I believe the actual judges are going to score the fight. And usually the judges will favor a champion in close rounds. So round 1, I had either 10-9 Rose or 10-10. The likelihood of a 10-10 round was virtually nil, but I figured, and I even mentioned this live, that the judges are likely to favor the champion. So I gave it 10-9 Rose. Round 2, I had 10-9 Esparza. I believe she almost got a successful takedown, and she was the one really going forward, trying to do more that round. The first round, neither of them did absolutely anything. It was just horrible, absolutely frustrating. But the second round, I gave 10-9 Esparza, which meant that it was either 19-19 tied, or you could even say it was 2019 Esparza if you gave the first round a draw. Third round, I gave to Rose. I thought she landed a little bit better strikes, and Esparza wasn't really able to get anything going. So I gave 10-9 to Rose. Fourth round, I gave to Esparza 10-9. Because again, she was the one actually trying to do anything. And then fifth round, it was so boring that when Rose got that last takedown in the final 10 seconds, I figured that the judges would most likely to give it to Rose 10-9. So I had it either 48-47 Rose, or depending on how you scored that fifth and final round, it was either 48-47 Rose or 48-48 draw. The actual score ended up being 48-47 Esparza, 49-46 Esparza, which is 4 rounds to 1, and then 48-49 or 48-49 Namajunas. So my scoring based on how I figured the judges were to score it was either going to be Rose or a draw, which would mean Rose got to keep the belt. Rewatching it, really going back over it, excuse me, in my mind, yeah, I could give it to Esparza. Just because really she had the most control time, and that was like, if all striking is even, all takedowns and everything else are even, and the numbers were so close, they basically were even, that it then goes down to, who was controlling the fight, who is the aggressor, who is octagon control, basically. And that's what you got to go down to. And I could definitely understand why the judges would give it to Esparza, because she was the aggressor for most of the fight. So I can't blame him for giving it to Esparza. I picked Rose. You can go back and watch my fight preview. I picked Rose, but I'll tell you what. I am ecstatic that Esparza won. Good for her. And she mentioned in the post-fight presser that she's actually going to wear her belt down the aisle at her wedding next weekend. It's going to be her something new. So brides have to wear something new, something old, something borrowed, something blue. She says the belt is going to be the something new. So I don't blame her. Good for her. And as an Esparza fan, I was cheering for her. So I'm happy for her. And of course, hold on. Super Carla. She threw that Superman punch like 2 or 3 times. Missed every one of them, but I just thought this would make for a funny thumbnail. But getting back to the fight, was this the worst title fight in UFC history? Some people calling it R, but I think that's recency bias because it's so fresh. It's been less than 24 hours. I would make the argument that Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero back in 2020, the same night as Weili versus Joanna 1, and also Shevchenko versus Carmouche 2 were just as bad, if not worse. So while this fight was bad, was it the worst title fight in UFC history? No, I think at best at worst it's tied. But to me, the sourness of Shevchenko versus Carmouche 2 was just absolutely horrible. And then Adesanya versus Romero, especially considering the fight before that was Weili versus Joanna, that fight just stank up the place. A horrible fight. So it was just horrible. Let's go through the chats real quick here. Chris says no other fighter blows hot and cold like Rose. Yeah, she does. Because she comes in, she'll get a finish. And then the next fight, she'll go to like a split decision. And then the next fight, she'll get a finish. And then she goes to like a split decision. Here, she's coming off a split decision, comes into this one, and then loses a split decision and just fights hesitant. That's what it was. The whole fight, she was hesitant. She was afraid of going forward and allowing Carla to shoot off the counter. But at the same time, she really wasn't allowing, anytime Carla came forward, what did she do? She backed up and circled away, or just straight up circled all the way around. That's all Rose did the entire fight. She didn't want to go forward. She didn't want to, lead the fight, but she also didn't want to engage off the counters. It's like, you got to do something to win. And piggybacking off of that, Rose's corner, you had her husband, Pat Barry, who's always there, and her coach, Trevor Whitman. Pat Barry kept telling her that, what you're doing, you're sticking to the plan. You're sticking to the plan. He was even saying, you hear that? The booing? He's like, that means the plan's working. So stick to the plan. But then in comes, so he gives like his little talk. And then Trevor Whitman gives her talk. And Whitman was given the much better advice. Whitman was telling her, hey, you gotta pick it up a little bit. You gotta go forward. You gotta engage more. You gotta throw more punches. So you had two coaches in your corner giving you exact opposite advice. I mean, it was just like, here's one bit of advice, and here's the opposite advice. And you had her two corners, and it's like, who do you listen to in that case? So Rose needs to pick one of those two in her corner. It's got to be either Pat Barry or it's got to be Trevor Whitman. Now, I know on the outside looking in, I'd go Trevor Whitman. Whitman's a real fight coach. Pat Barry's dumb. Pat Barry's just dumb. But he's also her husband / groomer. So is she gonna kick Pat out of her corner? I don't think so, especially because like when she lost to Carolina, a lot of people were saying, well, she didn't do well because Pat wasn't in her corner and blah, blah, blah. Because that was like the one fight where he wasn't in her corner and she lost. It's just hard to pick, but you can't have two people in your corner giving polar opposite advice. You just can't. So, Chris does say it was the worst title fight in years. I would say 2 years because of Romero versus Adesanya. Judy B says Carla did take her down twice. Yeah, she got 2 out of 11. takedowns, and Rose got 1 out of 1. Chris asks, how do you think this would have gone under one championship rules? Oh my gosh. I think they would have both gotten yellow carded at least once. Under one championship rules, like that's the thing. Keith Peterson? Yeah, Keith Peterson, the referee, didn't implore the fighters to more action. And I think most other referees would have done that. Maybe it's because it was a championship fight. But, I mean, he should have definitely given them a warning because they were both being too timid, a little bit too timid. Carla, a little bit less so than Rose. But under one championship, I think both fighters would have lost some salary due to being yellow carded. Both of them would have gotten yellow carded. As to who wins, I guess Carla, because you look at Rose's face after the fight. Well, that's not a good one. We'll show you in the post-fight pressers, but Carla looked fine. She had a little bit of redness here, but Rose had a black eye, I think, some marks on her nose. So out of the damage criteria, you'd have to go Carla. And that's the most important criteria. But man, if one championship would have put on this level of fight, it would have, everybody would have been crapping on it way just as bad. Jacob Stacy says it was chess, not checkers, and Cookie Monster won. People can complain, but Esparza clearly won. Bigger issue for me was UFC commentary team blatantly lying, miscalling the bout in favor of Thug Rose. Well, yeah, they were definitely favoring Rose in the early part of the fight, but especially in the first round, but as it wore on, like even Daniel Cormier, who was like one of the biggest simps for Namajunas, and he basically admitted, like, I'm a huge Rose fan, but even I have to admit this is terrible. He had no choice. Like they had no choice but to admit this is a terrible fight. And they were saying after the fight was over, or after the event was over, and you had the three of them facing the camera, and they're talking about like, this is one of those fights where like you try to get people enthusiastic and bring them in as fans of the UFC and try to tell them, oh yeah, this is going to be an awesome fight. We've got an awesome champion here who gets a lot of finishes and likes to go for it. And then you show them this fight. And then guess what? You don't gain any fans. You just lost potential fans. And that's basically what happened with this bout. It was just really sad to see. So let me move back a slide here and enlarge this. Look at this out of Rose. This is from the post-fight press conference. It says, I don't get no credit for good defense. Well, no, Rose, you don't get good credit for good defense. The unified rules gives no credit for defense. One championship gives some credit for defense, particularly takedown defense, but not unified rules of MMA. I'm always in exciting fights. Like, I can't have a strategic fight. Well, you can have there's a difference between a strategic fight and a boring fight where you don't do anything. This wasn't a strategic fight. This was just an all-around bad, boring fight. And in this, to me, I can't highlight these letters because it's a photo. It says, I got to F up this face, Like, no, F that. That's why you deserved to lose the title, Rose. You're more worried about not messing up your face than you are about defending your title. Then you don't deserve to be champion. Carla Esparza's wedding is next week. And she still took this fight on, knowing that she could be going into her wedding with a black eye, a broken nose, swelling, stitches, and she still went in there and did it anyway because she wanted to be the champ. But you're more worried. You don't want to mess up your face? The girl who shaves her head is suddenly, in order to, basically get people off of trying to promote her as like the beauty girl, the model, shaves her head. And now you're suddenly worried about how you look? That's why you deserve to lose, Rose. That's why you deserved to lose last night. So I want to do something I've never done before. And I'm going to provide some commentary to these videos. So we're going to do both ladies post-fight pressers. Now, this was Rose. And before I start, this video is by MMA Junkie, but it's the post-fight presser. Now, disclaimer, fair use allows me to provide commentary on videos as long as I'm actually providing commentary and not just playing the video and letting it play. So I'm going to go ahead and play this out. Let me know in the chat if the audio is messed up, by the way. Actually, let me see if I can turn the volume down real quick here. No. All right.
Obviously, you're probably still processing everything right now. So, relatively, I guess, what are the feelings like right now?
When that fight, I stuck to the strategy. I felt like as if I landed more shots.
I believe at the end of so she felt like she won the fight. She stuck to the strategy, which I don't know what that strategy was, other than not engaging, and felt like she landed more shots. I believe at the end of the day, the stats showed she landed all of 3 more shots than Esparza did.
I even took her down. None of her takedowns.
You took her down in the last 10 seconds, and she almost got up. She basically was on 1 foot by the time the bell rang.
Significant or any control time.
She actually had at least two good takedowns. She had a takedown, I believe, in the second round. And then I believe the fourth round, she got a nice takedown. You got back up, but she had kept the body lock and got a suplex on you. That was honestly the biggest moment of that fight, was that suplex. And it wasn't a particularly strong suplex, but it was a suplex.
I mean, she hit me with, I'd say, 1 good punch, and then maybe another.
She hit you with maybe 1 good punch. What's this? And what's the markings on the nose here?
Time, like her forearm clashed into my nose at some point, as we're like both standing up. But other than that, maybe a couple low kicks, but I didn't feel them or anything. So.
Whether or not you felt them, they were visibly landed low kicks. And when nothing else is happening, that's what judges are going to be scoring.
I felt like I did the damage. I controlled the fight.
Felt like you did the damage, but what damage were you really doing? And how are you controlling the fight when you were mostly moving away anytime she actually came towards you?
I'm proud of myself because I stuck to my strategy. That's because I know that, like, in all of.
You're proud of yourself. You should not be.
Of Carla's fight, she just baits people in and she tries to get people to attack her. So it's like, no, I've been in slugfest before. I've gotten my nose broken. I've stood there and shed blood in the octagon. So it's like, I stuck to the strategy, and she didn't really.
So your strategy was not to engage, even when she wasn't engaging, is what I'm getting here. So basically, her strategy was not to engage, no matter what, even when Esparza was not engaging. Okay, if nobody's engaging, somebody has to do something at some point. You have the reach advantage. You have the height. You have the better striking. You could have used that at any time, and you did not. You chose not to do that. Whiffing it air the whole time, but you got that shiner. Got that bruise on your nose.
I'm really still trying to process this because I'm not trying to be healthy or anything.
You can think you won all you want, but you didn't. And take that black hoodie off, because that's a champion's hoodie.
I feel like there's something to learn from each loss. I feel like I could have maybe there was moments where I wanted to capitalize a little bit more, be a little more offensive.
So then why didn't you? Why didn't you be more offensive? You felt like you could have been more offensive. Why didn't you do it? Because you were sticking to the plan. And the plan was what? To not engage.
In moments, but then step to, my foot would slip. So I had to be a little more safe. That's the decision I made in that moment. But like I said,
Now, a lot of people are complaining about her saying that her foot slipped. Both fighters slipped during this fight, and G slipped as well, I believe, in the first round. And a lot of fighters have been complaining about how slippery the canvas is nowadays, especially that anytime over the logos are the worst. The logos, it seems like the sponsor logos, which by the way are everywhere on the canvas now. It seems like everywhere there's volume, everywhere there's a logo, it's slippery. So I'm not going to give her crap about that, especially when as far as it visibly slipped as well. I don't think I can turn it up any higher, Judy. Unfortunately.
I'm an exciting fighter. I'm a finisher in the highest finishing rate. So I don't think that.
Yeah, you have a very high finishing rate, but you also go to decision a lot. Usually after every finish.
I was getting the blues. I'm pretty sure that was part of it.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Guess what? It takes two fighters to make a fight. It takes two people to tango. Two people to tango. If they're booing the fight itself because neither fighter is doing anything, guess what? They're not just booing her. They're booing you too. They're booing both of you. Same thing as like, okay, I keep bringing this fight up, but Shevchenko versus Carmouche too. Guess what? Both fighters were getting booed because neither of them wanted to do anything. When the fight is boring, and it's because neither fighter is doing anything, guess what? They're booing both of you. Like, okay, if a fight is boring because one fighter A goes out there, takes fighter B down, and just grapples them for 3 straight rounds or 5 straight rounds, okay, yeah, they're probably booing the guy who's not doing anything but grappling and taking the other fighter down. Particularly if fighter B on the bottom is known to like to strike. People tend to favor strikers over grapplers. So yeah, maybe they'll be booing one fighter, but in a fight like this, where neither fighter was really doing much, they're booing both of you.
As far as, I don't know. I obviously I want to have exciting fights, so that does kind of sting a little bit too.
So then be more exciting.
Obviously, proud of yourself for sticking to the game plan, but because it was kind of like relative black back, was there any part along the way, round 3, round 4, where you're like, maybe we got to get out of this game plan because we're not necessarily, we don't know that we're scoring points.
No, I knew I was going.
Trevor Whitman in her corner was telling her to try to get going. He was trying to give her advice, saying, you got to do more. But Pat Barry, Pedo Pat, was saying, no, stick to the game plan. Pat Barry was the one saying, hear that? Hear that booing? That means the plan is working.
I knew I was touching her. There was some kind of, but it was because, I just, I don't know. I felt like I was scoring,
Scoring with what?
There was like I said, there was moments where I was like, okay, here's an opportunity to counter attack a little bit more, but then my foot was slipped on the canvas. Slippery after that.
Okay, how many times are you going to use that excuse, though? Like, there was one real visible slip.
Yeah, but I don't know. I thought I won that fight.
Yeah, you felt wrong.
Last thing for me, I guess we don't process everything. But what do you think you do now? Do you campaign to have this fight again? Do you maybe look at other matchups that make sense? Do you take some time off? What do you think?
No way they're going to make this fight again anytime in the near future. No way.
I would do a rematch. I feel like, I feel like I was stronger everywhere. So, I don't know.
Honestly, she was stronger everywhere.
But, I would take a rematch.
Of course she would. No one likes losing.
No, I don't know. I would probably be like, copy my team a little bit. And that's the thing too.
This is nuts too. The guy asked her, if you had to do it again, would you try to mix it up a little more? And she goes, "Oh, I'd probably have to talk to my team about it." It's like, wrong answer. You just lost. The answer should be yes. I would definitely try to mix it up more. I would definitely try to do more. That's the only answer you should be giving to that question.
Sometimes you make honest decisions. So, I want to do this year,
Which Rose never did last night.
Ever tell you anything that strayed away from the game plan? Even to that different time around?
Did he tell me anything?
Did he give you any advice that maybe wasn't on target?
He definitely did. I'm pretty sure he did.
The only thing he was telling me was, okay, now we can start, having some more fun. And
Yeah, he did say that.
4 rounds up, and,
Well, them telling her she was 4 rounds up was nuts. Either they're delusional or just dishonest.
I felt like I hit her a few different times, especially overhand right. I remember landed.
She missed a lot of those too.
I don't know. I have to go back and watch it, but I remember, landing a nice uppercut.
She did land some couple nice uppercuts.
Even
They worked.
some of the punches that were
Didn't keep up with them though.
I feel like I was not just making the damage, but also controlling them. So I don't know.
You weren't controlling the fight
But
though.
yeah, I still got to ruminate over it a little bit.
You really weren't.
Like I said, I really hate sounding like this. I hate sounding salty. Like I lost.
You definitely sound salty though. You definitely sound salty, Rose. This whole press conference is salty.
Immediate reaction, how different are your emotions when you're talking right now?
Yeah, I didn't feel like she could believe me this time. I genuinely feel like, yeah, she was better than me. That night, the first time we saw it. This time, I don't know.
Well, nobody really won last night. I mean, let's be honest here. Carla, okay, so Carla was the winner of the fight officially. Well, let's be honest here. The paying fans lost.
I mean, I took her down.
In the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, she did take my back.
Yep. Longer than that. I'm not sure what the criteria is on that either.
Oh, no.
Lastly, Joe Rogan in DC, somewhere in the middle of the fight, they were talking about how he went right at Joanna and really checking an amazing striker, and he was very respectful of Esparza's wrestling. So when you were a little bit, feeling her out, was that just really out of respect for wrestling?
No, I don't think she ever will, Chris. She's just too, like you said earlier, she is too hot and cold to ever win 4 in a row. But if your game plan isn't really doing anything either, and if your coaches weren't lying to you, they would have told you your game plan's not working. You should have done at least something, change up the game plan. Again, with the slipping on the canvas.
But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, and like with other strikers and stuff, I mean, he didn't. I think Whaley had more success with her sometimes against people because she lifted up. And I don't really respect her wrestling like that. Whereas, Carla.
See, that's a good point. Whaley does mix up her wrestling better than Carla does. Carla likes to shoot out from a distance. She likes to go for that power double to really drive for it, which striking doesn't always allow you to do. But she admits here that she didn't really respect Whaley's wrestling that much, whereas she definitely respects Carla's. So a lot of people, a lot of fans particularly, don't have any respect for Carla, but even Rose did because she knows what Carla's wrestling can do.
Only so much to the point where like I don't know. Like,
Well, I don't see how you stay the champion doing what you did. Yep, salty. Salt.
I don't know. I would just say all this kind of just
All right, I'm kind of bored with Rose now. I think I said basically all I needed to say. Didn't get to that same quote that I had up earlier. Don't think we got to this one quite yet, but I think I heard all I need to do from Rose. But let's hear from Esparza, and let's hear a little bit from Esparza. Obviously, it's going to be a different tone here from her.
so excited and happy and can't believe after all these years that I felt that amazing.
It's technically not the same belt. It's a new one.
Get back here is somehow maybe more special, more crucial.
It's really hard to compare the two because they're both such amazing feelings and I went through so much to get both about both times. But for sure I would definitely rate getting about both times as absolutely.
By the way, she actually set a new record last night in the UFC for longest time between championship reigns. For Carla, it was either 2,000 in some days, like in the high 2,000 or in a low 3,000. A really long time. I mean, it was 7.5 years basically.
Fight wasn't necessarily the most exciting fight that we've ever seen. So I guess there's a PowerPoint that might be that. But what is your take about just how the way the whole thing played out?
It's always a bummer. You always want to cover the show for the fans, so it's sort of fortunate to be part of a fight like that. But I felt that I was just putting pressure on. I felt that I was putting forward. I was with Jessica. I was moving on to center and off. So at the end of the day, I did what I could and I tried to fight my fight, but I
So here's the contrast here. Whereas Rose wasn't really worried about the fight being a bummer. She was worried about sticking to the game plan. At least Carla can admit, yeah, the fight ended up being a bummer. And, I don't think nobody really expects exciting fights out of Esparza because she mostly goes to decisions and very close split decisions sometimes. But at least she can admit, yeah, it was a bummer fight. Whereas Rose just worried about, well, no, I was sticking to the game plan. I was being smart. Whereas Esparza says, yeah, I was sticking to my game plan, but it would have been nice to be. Well, we'll get to that in a second.
I think a lot of us were pretty uncertain what the judges' scores were going to be because the rounds were so close. How did you and your team, scoring as you went along, and how confident were you? Okay, yes, we are thanking the round.
In my head, I felt that just being the aggressor and it would look better to the judges. But in fights like that, you never know how the judges are going to view it. So, at the end of the day, I was not 100%.
I think it's fair to say that simply being the aggressor is what indeed won her the belt.
Yeah, and obviously you're both staying disciplined and stick to your game plan. Was there ever a part in the latter stages where you're like, we've just got to get crazy and get aggressive, or did you think let's stay with what we're doing?
I felt that I fought a smart game plan. I felt that if I would have gotten too wild and too reckless, I could set myself up for, to be a highlight reel. Rose has incredible timing and placement on her strikes. She's got awesome head.
So at the end of the day, both fighters admit that they, wanted to stick to the game plan, which is what made it a boring fight. So I still got to give. And okay, I'm showing my bit of my favoritism because I'm an Esparza fan. I'm not a Rose fan. Although I do respect Rose's abilities and skills, but at least Esparza is admitting that, yeah, the fight stunk.
So, I just feel like it was a smart person to get rested.
Do you think you'll ever cross paths with her again, or do you think at this point, we've seen it twice?
It's hard to say what the future holds because I never even thought that we would be fighting today. But you never know, and I'm down for whatever the UFC has.
Lastly, for me, Dana always says we're not making fights.
Well, I think it's safe to say that fight's not going to happen again anytime soon. Not after last night.
Right away, they just say, hey, Gang and you want a rematch. I was thinking of one contender fight for him. It looks like another one contender fight for him as well. And
I would say it's definitely like an administration fight. That or Marina Rodriguez, and obviously we fought before.
Personally, I'd rather see. I'm tired of rematches, but I'd rather see the Rodriguez match. I would definitely rather see the Rodriguez match because at least she has been banking some wins compared to the winner of Wei Li versus Joanna 2 will only have a single win.
Almost definitely. I'm gonna walk with this belt down the aisle as my champion. Super excited about that. Yeah.
Are you really?
I am. Because we wrapped around my wedding dress.
In the face of the
Oh my gosh. I mean, at the end of the day.
So I went into James Lynch's channel, went to his post-fight debrief, and I even asked him, I was like, do you think Esparza is going to do pull a TJ Dillashaw and take wedding photos with the belt? Because that's something TJ Dillashaw was notorious for doing, his wedding pictures with the belt. And he's like, oh, yeah, of course she is. And yeah, she is admitting it. That's pretty funny. But I don't blame her. Like Jacob says, still looking good for upcoming nuptials.
I definitely was a little bit surprised. I thought she was going to be a little bit more aggressive. I wasn't surprised necessarily at the game plan, because I kind of watched a similar fight like with Raj, where she kind of played on the outside and took her shots. But I thought that she was a little bit more aggressive in that fight.
I have to agree with Carla here. She was way more aggressive in the Andrade fight, and Andrade was the aggressor. And she was not afraid to use her punches to keep Andrade on the outside in either fight, particularly the first one. She used her striking to keep Andrade at bay as best as she could. But here, when Esparza came forward, Rose didn't even want to do that. When I keep saying she does, she backed up and circled away. At least with Andrade, she would use her strike, and then she would strike a little bit, use her punches, particularly her jab was on point in those fights, and kind of halt Andrade's momentum with the punches, and then use her lateral movement. Whereas here, she just kept using the lateral movement.
I can say I'm surprised, but not totally.
A good example of that was the Alexa Grasso fight, where Grasso had that low stance. And then I mentioned last night during the fight companion that, we saw Rose employ like a bit of a lower stance. And in both situations, yeah, okay, it'll help you stop the takedown a little bit better. It'll help you be ready for a sprawl. But at the same time, you can't strike as good if you employ that low stance.
To win a fight, I feel like you have to do a lot more. You have to be more aggressive. You know, at the end of the day, they're going to lose because it's going to happen. But
So really, it was just, let's be honest here, with Esparza, the little bit of aggression is really what won her the fight, because there wasn't much else to talk about in that fight. So her moving forward for most of the fight is what won her the fight. And that's about it, because there really wasn't much else to talk about it. But at least she was like, at least she's humble enough to admit that, you know, let me back it up a second here. At least she can admit not a lot happened.
but I felt that, you know, I was holding the center of the octagon. I felt that I was really trying to push the pace and people are trying to keep down. So, you know, to really say that, hey, this was my victory, like I feel it's my victory.
They showed a graphic. I forget what that exact number is. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Because I mean, it killed. The second one was Frank Mir, and it destroyed it. Was it posted on facts? Let me see if it's here. Okay, so MMA Junkie has it. Esparza's gap of 2,612 day between UFC title reigns is the longest in company history. That is a long time.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, that is one of my most proud accomplishments because I think that says a lot about me, you know, as an athlete that, you know, it's not easy to get the belt ever, but to kind of maintain at the top of this very, very difficult division and the biggest promotion in the world, you know, it's not easy. This game is tough. And to still be here almost 8 years later, winning the belt again, I'm super proud of it.
It is. I think you can tell just by looking at the list of champions and the champion's history, it is almost impossible to become the champ again when you lose it. Outside of an immediate rematch, it's almost impossible to regain the title when you lose it. Because out of all the lady champions we've had in UFC since 2013, so 7, 8, almost 9 years, Esparza is only the second female champion to regain a lost title next to Rose.
You know, I definitely did not expect the fight to go like that. You look at my takedown stuff says like when I thought it was on the outside and
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
you know, kind of like if you want I mean this fight was
That's good enough for that one. I don't want to be here all night. It's getting close to midnight. So Judy V got to head out. So good night, Judy V. So hold on, Judy. I do want to. You asked who's next for Carla. So give me like 2 minutes here. So yeah, that's the big question: is what's next for both of these ladies? For Carla Esparza, it seems like she's destined to meet the winner of Weili versus Joanna 2. That's what Dana is basically saying, that's a number one contender bout. You could do that. You could also do Jessica Andrade, who's sitting at number 5. And then you have two-time champ versus former champ. And then if Andrade wins, she would be the third woman to recapture a lost title. Or, and while I'm tired of rematches, Marina Rodriguez has called her shot. And Rodriguez is actually coming in on a winning streak. I forget how many fights it is, but at least she's coming in on a winning streak. So Rodriguez is riding 4 straight wins since her lone loss to Carla Esparza, and that's Rodriguez's only official loss. Now, she went to a split decision against Yan Xiaonan in her last fight, but she also beat Amanda Hebos, finished Hebos, beat Michelle Watterson in a decision on short notice in a 25-minute fight, and then got to split over Yan Xiaonan. So I think, honestly, if it were me, I would do Marina Rodriguez. Yes, it is a rematch, but Rodriguez is the most deserving fight. But we all know in UFC what most people think of as deserving is not necessarily what they think of as the most deserving. Because Joanna has fans and Wei Li brings in that potential Chinese yuan, that Chinese money. So they're most likely going to go with the winner of Joanna versus Wei Li 2, which they're probably guessing is going to be Wei Li. But either way, they're probably gambling on Esparza losing to whoever she faces next, because they only gave Esparza the title because Rose was willing to retake the fight, and because a lot of fans were clamoring for it. They were saying, "Look, she's won 5 straight. Everyone else is losing. Give Carla the shot." And Carla came in and she won the title. But the UFC, I really don't think they wanted to give her the title fight. I really don't think they wanted her to win. And I definitely don't think they want her to stay the champ. So I think they're going to go with whatever option they feel is most likely going to dethrone Carla. So I think it's going to be the winner of Wei Li versus Joanna. So let's go through the chats here and we'll finish up. Jacob Stacy says Namajunas seemed almost relieved to surrender the strap. Her corner was a weird one for this event. Her corner was weird, but I don't think she's relieved to lose the strap this time. I think she was the first time because I don't think she wanted all that pressure, but I don't think she was relieved this time. I think she was more angry that she lost. Judy V doesn't necessarily agree. Just answered that for Judy. Jacob says Namajunas seemed to take the loss well in a way that belies a relief. Thug Rose was just scared to commit and engage with Cookie Monster. Well, I agree with you, Jacob, that she was afraid to commit and engage, but I don't think she sounded relieved. I thought she sounded salty. I mean, she even mentioned that she's not being salty, which is a good sign that she was being salty. Jacob says, the UFC wants to feed Esparza to JJ, but I think Cookie Monster would take out JJ in a rematch, and I think JJ knows this as well. That's bold thinking. I like that. That's a bold take, Jacob, because I think most people think that JJ would just do to Esparza what she did in the first time out. And Chris Edwards Bailey says Rose may never win 4 fights in a row. I don't think she's capable of winning 4 fights in a row. I think she just cracks after 3 wins. I mean, Rose isn't the type to fall apart and mentally during a fight necessarily. Well, she admits that she did during the first Esparza fight. But outside of the cage, she is definitely a head case, and I think that is always going to affect her. Chris says, I'd love to see her fight Jan. I think Rose versus Jan would be an entertaining fight. I don't know if they want to give one of their potential future Chinese champs 3 losses in a row, but we'll see. Judy says, some say JJ, but that JJ should fight 2 more times before a title fight. I think JJ definitely needs at least 2 good wins before deserving a title fight. I don't think winning the rematch against Wei Li is enough because she's been taking too many L's lately. I mean, her only 2 wins in the last 4 years? We'll say 4 years at least, are Watterson and Torres. And neither of them were top 5 at the time, and neither of them are top 5 now. I don't think Tisha's a top 5 fighter right now. Check the rankings here. No, Torres is number 8 right now, and Watterson is at number 10, and that's around where they were when Jędrzejczyk fought them before. Jacob says Esparza now has a 2nd and 3rd generation style belt. Yep. So she has like the belt that most people remember, which was the Zuffa, the post Zuffa purchase belt when they got rid of the Ultiman on the belt, and now she has the Octagon belt. Still looking good for upcoming nuptials. Yeah, she looks good enough. And the markings that she has, she can probably cover up. Judy B says that belt looks too big for her small frame. It does, but not nearly as bad as the one championship belts are. Those belts are huge. And Judy says, thanks for the live. Till the next. Good night, everyone. Yeah, I'm tired. It's almost midnight here, and I got to be at work at 6. So, unfortunately, I didn't get any fight reviews done today. I will try to get some done for tomorrow. I hate doing them any later than 48 hours after a fight. Sometimes it just happens, though. But I'll definitely try to I got to do a review on this one. As bad as the fight was, I think it deserves some real analysis, or as best as analysis as I can do, in order to really break it down and explain the judges' scoring. I think I'll also do Godinez versus Carnolosi too. And I might do I'll probably do a full event review for Deep Jewels. But so that's basically it for tonight. So if you are watching and you are not yet a subscriber to WMMA Now, what are you waiting on? This is the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. By the way, don't forget to hit that like button, because the like button on the live shows helps to stimulate the YouTube algorithm, and then it draws people here that might be looking for the content for, talks about whatever subject we're covering that night. So always try to remember to hit that like button. And my chat's pretty good at hitting that live button, so I do appreciate that. So subscribe, hit the like. If you're watching this on the playback, let me know your thoughts in the comments. There are some polls up in the community posts. You go to my channel and then click on community. There's some community posts and there's some polls up there regarding last night. You can go ahead and vote on them. Sometimes I like to incorporate them into video subjects or stream chats. But definitely keep an eye out for any upcoming content. Some videos, reviews are coming. I'm going to try to get back on, doing more videos about fight announcements too. I've been slipping lately, and I'm going to try to get back on those. But if you go down to the description, I have my social media links are in there for Instagram, which I don't post that much, but Twitter, I'm always tweeting out live fight results as I watch them. I think PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App are down there if you want to make a donation. Not saying you have to, but if you want to say, hey, here's a couple bucks, thank you for the content, always appreciated. Also, if you're a big fan of One Championship and you want some One Championship gear, I have both a discount code and an affiliate link in the description, in the video description. So go check those out, the One Championship shop. But other than that, that's really all I have. Thank you for watching tonight. Like I said, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Everyone, have a good night, and we'll see you next time.